Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly podcast and live broadcast dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. Tonight, I'm going to be bringing on a couple of my fellow colleagues over there from SI.com to talk about all the news and notes again from the nation's top conference here in the SEC. That is why it is SEC Nightly. We're going to bring in my buddy Cole Thompson. He's a familiar face on this broadcast. We'll add him first, and then a new friend of the show, and hopefully a continued friend of the show. We'll bring in Chantel Powell as well. Ladies and gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? Cole, we'll start with you. How's it hanging out there in the big state?
On the Lone Star State, it's always a good time. You have recruiting, always another battle. And with the new news coming out of it, Texas A&M with the new hires, it's definitely something that you're going to want to look forward to, especially losing now the running backs coach. This will now be the fourth coach in the past month and a half that Jimbo Fisher will have to replace for his staff. But losing a running backs coach who is now going to a rival in Tennessee is a big loss. So those are definitely things that you're going to want to look forward to down in Texas.
He'll probably just steal another coach off the Georgia staff. So, Chantel, we'll go to you. How's it hanging out there in South Carolina in Gamecock land?
A little on edge right now. Everyone seems to be okay just in terms of coaching hires. Mike Bobo is getting adjusted as the new offensive coordinator. They've got new strength and conditioning coach. So everyone's getting used to that. A couple recruits didn't sign on early signing period. I don't know if people may have heard this. Jordan Birch apparently went to LSU for a visit. So people are just kind of holding their breath until National Signing Day.
Yeah, they're going to need to. I thought it was very, very weird how that whole situation broke out. I know, Chantel, you were right there with it.
Yeah.
For him not to sign his letter of intent on early National Signing Day, but yet to still have a press conference, to then say no questions after the press conference. All things really, really weird to still not have sent. Well, obviously, you can't send the letter of intent now because the early signing window has passed. But
right.
that Jordan Birch saga has been one that is, almost, it's not as intriguing as the Zach Evans saga because it hasn't been as much noise coming out of it, right? But if you really sit down and look at it, especially with the way the role that Mom's played in that situation, how she's really quite literally worn all the pants. I know John Garcia told me he was down there at the Under Armour All-American game, and I hope it's okay that I tell this on this broadcast, but John was telling me he asked Jordan for an interview after the Under Armour game, and he said no. Mom said no questions. So, I mean, that's the type of recruitment process we've really dealt with Jordan Birch. And it's gotten even worse than that. I had a reporter tell me from another competing website that he got 3 questions. Mom said, you get 3 questions. That's it. and then you're out of here, big dog. I don't care if your name is blank, blank, and you're from so-and-so. You get 3 questions. But we've got more than 3 questions on tonight's broadcast. We're going to be talking about coaching hires, and we're going to start with the best hire in the SEC. There's been a handful of them. This is head coaches. This is offensive coordinators, or, even if you want to take that player personnel coach they stole off the staff from Georgia, Cole, you can take that one as well. We're going to go to Cole first. Cole, in your opinion, who is the best hire in the SEC this year?
Well, I think you got to go with 2 big names right now. And the first one to me is Lane Kiffin. I think you got to start just there no matter what. What he was able to do in Florida Atlantic at Boca Raton and also at Alabama, the way the offense changed with Blake Sims and with Jacob Coker, 2 guys who never even got a shot at the NFL level, but what he was able to do to build around them just speaks dividends, and that led to him ultimately getting the head coaching job at Florida Atlantic, 2-time Conference USA champions. They didn't even get a chance to go to a major bowl game because that was the highest level you can. With now better recruiting processes down in Oxford, Mississippi, he's going to contend for a chance to really battle it out and fight for an SEC West title in a few seasons. He's getting 2 very versatile quarterbacks in both Matt Corral and John Reese Plumlee. And if he's able to add a talent like Zach Evans, who did visit the program last month, both is definitely going to be able to get something for Lane Kiffin. I'm very excited to see that era go. They call him the Lane Train, all aboard to Oxford. But another hire that not a lot of people are talking about that I think could really make a lot of sense, Chad Morris to Auburn. I'm being dead serious on this. When you look at the offensive production, when he was able to get out of Taj Boyd, a dual threat quarterback who used his legs, back-to-back 3,000-yard passing seasons, and another add 15 touchdowns on the ground each year. Bo Nix is a very similar style. You're going to want to use your legs. You're going to want him to be able to get those passes going. And with no quarterback controversy with Joey Gatewood now heading to Kentucky, I do believe this is a very good move by a Gus Malzahn offense, letting Morris control the plays, no longer being able to hold back on a guy like Nix. You get a guy who's worked with a mobile quarterback, a guy who's been a head coach, a guy who has won at the college level as a coordinator. I think both of those hires were fantastic by both programs. In the SEC West, that's going to be even more competitive.
I like those two hires as well. I mean, we kind of know what Chad Morris has been able to do in the SEC. Former head coach there at Arkansas, didn't quite work out. Chantel, who do you think is the best hire in the SEC this offseason?
Well, I'm going to kind of go most intriguing and piggybacking off of Cole. I like what Lane Kiffin was able to do bringing on Jeff Levy from the, as everyone knows, national champion UFC Knights, or UCF, excuse me. God, they're going to come after me.
No,
but,
which fans are more zealous, though? Which fans, the UFC fans or the UCF fans? I think the UFC fans are probably more likely to give you crap on social media than those UCF guys.
I was going to say we're getting ready to find out. But just seeing what he was able to do with Mackenzie Milton and then Dylan Gabriel just went with that offense and keep it moving, not just on the field, but like, I've heard from people because I used to work in Florida, just this behind the scenes things and what he was able to do from a morale standpoint and getting them ready and getting them out there. I'm just excited to see what he's able to do. Mike Bobo at USC, of course, excited to see what he's going to do. And at Arkansas, Kendall Briles, see what the high powered offense is going to do now that it hopefully has an offensive line.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Sam Pittman there, first head coaching job he's had since 1992 at Hutchinson's Community College. So,
right.
Yeah, he's a little bit I don't want to say he's over his skis a little bit, but to go from an offensive line coach to immediately stepping as a head coach, even though it is his dream school there at Arkansas. But to me, man, I think the best hire, if for none other than entertainment purposes, how about Mike Leach there at Mississippi State, right? I mean, I had to. I can't believe you guys left it for me. I mean, to be honest, there is no more entertaining football coach in college football. And to me, I think it's a good hire for this reason right now. In the SEC, most of these schools that are dominant year in and year out, they are recruiting powerhouses, okay? And you're never going to be able to do that there in Starkville. So what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to out-scheme people. And I know the air raid. I know the Big 12 offenses have slowly crept their way into the SEC. But what I tell you hasn't happened is 689 pass attempts last year from Anthony Gordon out there at Washington State. That kind of air raid hasn't happened. No one in FBS last year had more than 600 pass attempts. Joe Burrow had, I think, 540. We're talking about 689 pass attempts last year at Washington State for Anthony Gordon. So we're talking a full-on air raid offense and something I'm excited to see. Look, he's never going to recruit at a top 15 level. He's never going to recruit at especially a top 10 level. He might be, lucky to crack the top 25, honestly. Mississippi State really doesn't do it, and Mike Leach has never been a top recruiter at any school he's ever been at. But again, we haven't seen anything like this enter the SEC. We've seen bits and pieces of it, but we haven't seen these wide gap schemes that he's going to be throwing out there. And again, 50, 55 pass attempts per game. He's going to score points. I don't care what anybody says about it. All right, into another category. This one can kind of be a coach or a player. Who's the person or player, coach or player, that's going to spend their first year in the SEC this year or first year back in the SEC in quite some time for some of these coaches, and who's most likely to have success in year one? Cole, we'll go down the line. We'll start with you. Who's a coach, player, or coordinator that's going to have a great year this year?
Well, I kind of want to say Joey Gatewood, but we don't know what's going to happen with him if he's going to get the transfer NCAA portal to agree to that transfer. So because I can't say that, I'm going to go with Jeff Levy. I really liked what he was able to do with Mackenzie Milton. I really thought that he was going to be something very productive to this new offense down at Oxford. What you already have there are two very different style quarterbacks, kind of what he's worked with Mackenzie Milton, Brandon Wimbush, and a couple other guys down at UCF. I think that he already knows how to coordinate very well with quarterbacks. And for him to be able to work with two very different-minded guys is definitely going to be something to, I think, really benefit the Oxford Ole Miss Rebels early on in their career, because of you're going to be able to make schemes come out very fast and very different that allowed this Rebels offense to be able to put up points consistently. I also think just because of I have to go with him, I also think the new our new guy down at Texas A&M, James God, why am
Coley.
Yeah,
James Coley.
I mean, when you look at him and what he's been able to do with Jimbo Fisher in the last couple years of his career, what they were able to do out in Tallahassee, you have two tight ends, one who really impressed in Jalen Weidemeyer and one in Baylor Cupp, who was a 5-star recruit, untapped potential down there. You now have two guys to work with. I think both of them with Coley, who's been known to bring tight ends to that high-end level, to the NFL style. Great move by him, but Levy's the first guy. I think when you look at the two offenses that he's going to be able to bring with two different style quarterbacks, and maybe Zach Evans, both make a ton of sense. I think he's going to have a very big year and could even get some small school names if he really finds success out in Oxford.
All right, Chantel, on to you. Who's a coach or player or coordinator that's, going to have success in their first year in the SEC?
Well, going back to your point, I think Mike Leach is going to be able to score some points. And that's what I was kind of thinking. Just looking at the schedule and the way things are assembled, they're going to be able to get rolling like those first 4 games, because I think it's like New Mexico, NC State. So they don't get into the heart of it until they hit that like brick wall with like Auburn, LSU, Alabama. Mm-hmm. So I think, he could realistically go in like undefeated before that streak and really get his stuff going. And then with his the defensive coordinator they just hired, wasn't he at San Diego State, I believe, beforehand?
Yeah, Zach Arnett, the 34-year-old, real young.
Yeah. So you bring in some new blood. Yeah. So, new blood, new kind of ideas out there, and really kind of tighten things up, because I don't really trust Pac-12 defenses a lot of times. So you're gonna need something, because it's a different ball game. So I think the way the schedule is assembled and who they're playing this year, I think Mike Leach can have a pretty good year.
I think what it's safe to say, probably knowing what Mike Leach is going to be doing on offense in terms of he's going to be putting his defense out there, right? They're either going to score quickly or they're going to go 3 and out. That defense is going to have to play opportunistic football. They're going to have to chase turnovers. They're going to have to take leaps, strip the football, try to get interceptions, play death, and quick turnover football. That's what Zach Arnett's going to have to do. And again, a really young coordinator. It's a 34-year-old in his first real big time DC job. I know he was out there at San Diego State, but we're really going to find out what he's made of in terms of a defensive coordinator here in year 1. But you know what? Young coordinators have had success in this conference. Look no further than at the University of Georgia with Dan Lanning, a really young coordinator who had his first big job in the SEC last year, and did an incredible job. Say what you want about Kirby running that defense and having his hand in all of those things. Dan Lanning was up for Assistant Coach of the Year this year in his first year at Georgia as a defensive coordinator. Young guys can get after it. It's a lot about playing and coaching with a lot of energy, especially on that defensive side of the ball. Young guys can do that. They're going to need a bunch of it at Mississippi State. A guy and a combo. How about a combo right here of first-year guys for the SEC? Let's pound the homer table here. How about them Georgia Bulldogs? Todd Monken, Jamie Newman, Buster Faulkner, the trio. Yeah. Coming to the SEC for the first time. I know, Todd Monken was at the SEC in 2006 and 2007 at LSU with Jamarcus Russell as their quarterback. And how about a more of a big-bodied, more agile quarterback and a deep ball thrower with Jamie Newman? I mean, all of the arm talent, not all of the arm talent. I mean, we're talking about Jamarcus. Jamarcus Russell's a dude who could still to this day throw it through the field goal post on his knees from the 50-yard line. I mean, that's going to
reach the field goal post. He couldn't hit the actual.
Right.
He could reach it, couldn't hit it. I mean, that's the problem. The only difference is Jamie Newman can do that, and he's added the element of his legs. I think a lot's been said about what Georgia's lost on that offensive line, but that's really the only position. I know they lost DeAndre Swift. I know some people are going to tell me they lost Eli Wolf and Charlie Warner. What I'm telling you right now is the tight end position, they made an upgrade with Trey McKitty and Darnell Washington coming in and joining that roster in 2020. And honestly, you could make the argument, and I'm a Jake Fromm defender, but I guarantee you there's smart people, there's credible people out there in this world that would tell me that Jamie Newman is the better college quarterback than Jake Fromm and has more talent to do so. Okay. We've got one here on the panel that thinks Jamie Newman's more of a threat and he's more scared as a defensive coordinator of Jamie Newman than he is of Jake Fromm. So how about,
honestly,
I mean, I understand. And it has a lot to do with the fact that he's quote unquote dual threat. He can beat you in a multiple and a facet of ways. And as a defense coordinator, that puts stress on your defense. So that's the guy I'm going with, or the trio that I'm going with for most likely to succeed in year one, only for the fact that, look, all Georgia's offense has to do is be slightly better than last year's offense, and they will still win 10 or 11 games, maybe 12 games in the SEC, because the SEC East is still rather down. South Carolina, not ready to quite hang with the big boys. Agreed or disagree, Chantel? Are they ready to hang in the SEC East, South Carolina?
I think so. I think last year was I think last year was more of an anomaly than, what's to be expected.
Okay, yeah, a laydown year is not to be expected from a Will Muschamp team. I understand that. So
right.
we'll say that, okay? Not terrible, but I mean, Kentucky, Missouri's going to be down again this year with all that dumpster fire that happened with Barry Odom. Okay, so the division is more ticking down than it is ticking up. I know Florida's doing well, but Kirby Smart's kind of manhandled Dan Mullen in the last 2 years. So we'll see what happens there. I think that offense, all they got to do, like I said, is just get a hair better, and Georgia gets better as a whole, because that defense is going to be just as good, if not better, next year. All right, into our next segment. Let's talk that Magnolia State rivalry. Let's talk the two personalities. And to start this conversation, is there a better combination of followers on Twitter than Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin? I'll open it up to the floor. Can you bring, if I'm sitting here in a game of poker, I've got pocket aces in Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin on Twitter. Bring me two coaches with more personality. Cole, we'll start with you. Can you find them?
No, of course you can't find it. You have the two best coaches, and it's all because of one player peeing like a dog. We now have two of the most energetic coaches in college football. You have to remember that without the firing of Joe Moorhead, Joe Judge was originally going to be the top choice, and he got the job in New York, which led to Mike Leach getting into the SEC, a gift that keeps on giving. You now have America's bad boy in college football who does not care about anything but production, and then you have the weirdest lovable goofball who probably in a poker game would say something along the lines of, oh, a king and an ace? There's one time in 1864, a king once met an ace who was a Jeffrey. He would go like that, and Lake Kiffin would just go, yeah, go yourself, man. I mean, that's what we're getting in the Egg Bowl. No matter what you look at with these two coaches, both are going to find ways to succeed. And no matter what you get a plethora of game time. This is no longer one of those games that we look at on Thanksgiving to compare to the NFL. We're now comparing this to what is the NFL game that night, because if I'm going to just keep two televisions on, flipping the channel back and forth just for a peek at whatever these two look like on the sidelines.
I agree. Chantel, what do you think about it?
I see that and raise you Lane Kiffin's social media. I really want him to bring the Twitter energy to the SEC. Like, I need to see him go hard and call out the officials with a good meme. Like, I need to see him joke on I want to see him lead up to the Egg Bowl with his best joke of whatever's going on at that time. So that's what I'm looking forward to most. If Lane Kiffin gets in trouble, casualties happen in that regard, but I want to see it.
I mean, the point is just I really want to see him and Mike Leach get in a Twitter war with Mike sending him encryptions of something from like the 1950s that he's going to have to figure out. Just a giant FU, but actually without saying it.
If Lane Kiffin says, okay, boomer, I might ascend.
Oh,
I can already see it. Chantel, I think we might want to clip this right now, because I can already see Lane Kiffin losing a Twitter battle with whoever runs Mike Leach's Twitter and then hitting his butt with a okay boomer. I can already see it right now coming down the pipe.
On that. If we're playing,
I gotta have it.
I am here for it. I hope during rivalry week, that's all they talk about. I hope they're back and forth. And I don't know if it's actually going to happen. Matter of fact, I doubt it does, because they're two CEOs of two top programs. But it hasn't stopped them from being reckless on Twitter lately, especially Lane Kiffin. I mean, and my question is he going to be as ruthless when it comes to going after Alabama and Nick Saban now that he's in the SEC West and his little brother to the almighty king right there in Tuscaloosa? That's one thing I think you got to pay attention to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and mostly because of there is memes out there and gifs out there of Saban just yelling at him. I could see him literally post that daily just in order to get used to it and then remember what the offense was called under during that game. I mean, you have to look at the numbers. And when Saban was there, because I was still a student for 1 year when Kiffin was on campus, they allowed Kiffin to have the keys to the offense. It was never an inconsistent back and forth style between Saban and Kiffin. It was Kiffin's battle, and whatever the cost was, Saban would yell out at him. So I do want to know how that's going to react on social media. But also, just a key fact in social media is another main way to win over recruits, and winning in recruiting battles by beating a guy who maybe you're after, like Mike Leach in a Twitter war, could be the difference about you finishing outside the top 25 or inside the top 25 on a recruit. I want to play with that coach who's able to give a nice snazzy comeback. That could be a difference maker.
Man, you talk about it. I mean, go ahead, Chantel. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think he tightens up a little bit around Alabama week, just because of the perception of him being like, not as serious and not as, studious as Nick Saban would have liked him. But God help us all if they pull off the upset and get Alabama. Then I think he lets loose. But I think he'll be, professional and, have some decorum around Alabama week just because of the image around him.
Man, you talk about him being image conscious and him, worried about his decorum and whatnot. Check his hiring history. I really don't think he cares. Guess who his co-defensive coordinator is, ladies and gentlemen? DJ Durkin. DJ Durkin is his defensive coordinator, guys. I don't think he really cares about the image, all right? And you know what? I don't think he's going to be able to afford to care about his image. He's heavily in the Zach Evans game. And while we're talking about this, guys, I had a little bit of a thought, and someone kind of laid this little egg in my ear. I'm not saying a birdie set it in my ear or anything like that, but how about this idea right here, okay? Everyone knows about the saga that is Zach Evans. And for the people that are tuning in right now, you're going to get quite a little bit of a hot take, okay? Zach Evans. Everyone knows whether or not he signed a letter of intent. He did sign a letter of intent at Georgia. He was let out of it. There's indication of whether or not he's going to be able to sign another letter of intent this recruiting cycle. If he is going to enroll at a Division I school, it's likely going to have to be after National Signing Day. Those are facts. Everyone knows that. That's laid out at this point. Cole, Chantel, how about this? The XFL starts this spring. The XFL has been hold on, guys. The XFL has been very, very adamant about the fact that they do not care if you have graduated college or not. Their eligibility rules do not apply to the NCAA. What keeps Zach Evans from saying, I'll take $100,000, I'll take $150,000 to go play in the XFL, where I can spend a couple of years crafting, shaping my craft and then enter the NFL? What's different? I mean, what's the difference between that and going and playing JUCO, which is something that's been leaked out there too? He might have to do that as well. I mean, it's just whether or not he's going to be able to get into school. That's the issue at this point. And I don't know if it's a great issue. I think it has a lot to do with that LOI. Guys, what do you think about that idea of, again, Oliver Luck's been very, very adamant about the fact that those eligibility rules do not apply. You do not have to be a 3-year collegiate player. You can come to our conference and our league straight out of high school. What do you guys think about that take? Zach Evans to the XFL.
Chantal, I'll pass it on to you first.
So my image of the XFL is like PlayStation 1, where it was basically a combination of like wrestling and football. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around.
You're talking about NFL Blitz. If you're talking about NFL Blitz, I am here for this. Get me a Bronco head. Let me touch all the buttons as fast as I can on the loading screen to get the cheat. All my gamers who are watching this right now, you guys are having a blast. Y'all got all those jokes. Chantel, back to you.
But that's what I'm used to playing. So that's kind of what I see the XFL as. So wrapping my head around it being, like the G League of football, that's going to take a second. And then the hot take of him going, if he could develop, it makes sense. But I think if you want the guidance and the trusted coaching of like already established people, then I think he tries to go back the traditional college route, because it's easier to kind of do that in basketball and take unconventional routes to the NBA. Football, not so much.
Bob Stoops, not a certified coach.
Wait, he's not at Florida State. No, I'm sorry.
Guess where Bob Stoops is coaching? Guess what team he's coaching?
The Dallas.
He's coaching that team in Dallas. He's coaching that team in Texas. I mean, hey, I'm just saying, I might be on to something here. I'm not. This isn't quoted. This isn't sourced. This is, again, just a crazy, wild, hot take. But at this point, guys, I've seen absolutely everything in this recruitment process. I've heard everything in this recruitment process. If you can think about it, if you can concoct the craziest story in your mind, yes, I've heard it, okay, about Zach Evans, okay? Whether it's how many letter of intents did he sign? Did he sign just the one at Georgia? I don't know. And what else is going on in that recruitment process? I don't know. I've heard everything. The least surprising and the least shocking development in this story is come May when we find out he's on an XFL roster. That would be the least shocking in the stories that I've heard.
Yes,
it's only crazy until it happens.
I mean, here's the biggest thing. I can just take this from working in spring football before working for the Alliance of American Football last year. Mm-hmm. The rule isn't that you have to know you can come right out of high school. The rule is, according to Oliver Luck, you don't have to be a 3-year graduate who applies to the NFL. You can
What does that mean?
It means that you can transfer, say, after your freshman year or sophomore year. They want to develop them a little bit, but it means that you don't have to transfer and declare for the NFL draft. You can just declare for the XFL draft, which is going to be a process moving forward. Also, what I do want to just take in mind, what if the league fails? I've been a part of the league that has failed. So with that also in mind, you would then have to sit out for another full season. You wouldn't be able to go through the recruiting process. You wouldn't be able to be on a roster because the league could fail in one season just on the ratings alone, not based off the money. I mean, you have to look. Vince McMahon has invested over $500 million into this league, something that the AAF never once had. But at the same time, if ratings don't work the same way they didn't work for him and Dick Ebersol back in the 2000s, that could be another problem that we just see unfold to where the league folds on itself and ceases operations. Now you're out another full season and you wouldn't be able to join a roster till the 2021 year. And that's if the NCAA would allow you to join if you didn't have to go the route. So I do think that while the JUCO route could be a route, something maybe go to Blinn Junior College if he was to sign a deal with Texas A&M. Maybe he goes to somewhere out in Kennesaw. Kennesaw State would be something that you look at and then transfers over to Georgia. Maybe Tennessee has something out there. Sewanee College, smaller school, go that direction. Something along the lines of that I could see probably happening where Evans doesn't play in the SEC this upcoming season. I just don't see him going to a league that has to prove itself first, that it's going to be around longer than one season for him to actually make a mark. Now, could he transfer after 1 year at the collegiate level? That I could see. But I don't see him going to a league that does not have any proof of lasting longer than a 10-season bet and maybe a playoff round, and then he has to start fresh all over again.
I don't see it happening. I'm just saying I don't see it not happening at this point. I don't think anything's off the table with this kid.
I'm never playing football again.
That was exactly the words that were going to come out of my mouth, Cole. I could literally tomorrow if I have Zach Evans on alerts, just like I have everybody, all these other top recruits on alerts. I have their social media accounts on alerts. If I got an alert tomorrow that had Zach Evans with his cleats thrown across a telephone wire saying it's over, just like Marshawn Lynch, I would not be shocked. I really would not, which is why I don't throw this off the table in terms of him just saying, you know what? Screw college. I've had all these issues with all these college coaches. They want to fit me in this box. They want to make me do this, make me do that. Meanwhile, they don't want to pay me. And as far as the XFL going under, here's the deal, Cole. I spoke to a member of the training staff at the Atlanta Legends. They didn't even have athletic tape. They didn't even have a funding system to even get them the required materials and required resources to even run a legitimate asset and a legitimate football team, let alone a professional football team. That's not the case with the XFL, and you totally saw it in the very first opportunity that owner had an opportunity to get out with only losing half of his rear end in a settlement. He got his butt out. I don't think you see that with Vince McMahon, and I really truly do believe the NFL wants spring football to work. They want people talking about football year round, even if it does take a little bit away from this downtime in between the Super Bowl and the draft, when all we're doing is looking at guys running around in shorts and in T-shirts and running 40s and doing the underwear Olympics. I understand that's a big ratings view, but so is, last year, the AAF or the AFL, whatever it was called, did a great job in the first week and did great job on TV ratings. I think the XFL is doing some very specific things in terms of changing the rulings of their games to make it more TV friendly, which I think is a very good idea. They're doing things like letting you listen in to the coaching staff's play calls, letting you listen to what referees are talking about in their meetings. I mean, they're totally opening this game up to a totally different and more TV broadcast friendly environment. And I think that's the way you have to go if you're going to battle and fight with the SEC. Cole, I know you're a friend of this program. You know how this is done, so I'm going to let you do it first. Tell all the people how they can find your great work over there at the Aggie Maven.
Pretty simple. All you got to do is just type in at Mr. Cole Thompson. It's right below. Just check that out. And if you want to go check out my work, si.com/NCAA/TAMU. All Aggies. We have excellent content surrounding everything from recruiting, basketball, football, and of course we got baseball coming up, so you can check all that out or check us out at Aggies SI.
All right, Chantel, you're up next. Tell us about the Gamecock channel.
Same, right there at Chantel Powell. There'll be links to Gamecock Digest. I have a different name than everyone else for some reason.
Special,
but
that's why.
Yeah.
You're special.
Yeah. Just tune in. The Lady Gamecock basketball team, they're about to make a run. They're number 1 in the nation. Still rolling. Men are finding their way. Spring football is coming up, so follow me, and there'll be links to the Gamecock Digest at si.com.
All right, Chantel, before we get everybody out of here, let's hear a Jordan Birch prediction. Crystal ball from CP herself, Chantel Powell. What is the crystal ball projection for Jordan Birch?
I think he stays. I think with this process, everybody kind of forgets that they're still kids. So it's like if I had the opportunity to go see, if someone's offering me the chance to go see these schools and they just won a championship, I'm going to go take it. Another trip. Cool. See the world. Go travel. But from what I've heard, he's kind of the reason he didn't sign on or send it in on early signing day was because he wanted to do it with his friends. And so it was kind of, it's an experience thing. So I'm all for them making the most of their experience. But I think I believe him when he says, his heart is there and that's what he wants to do and that's where he wants to go. I would take a trip too, if I could.
Something about that state of Carolina, man, when they have a top-notch athlete and a top-notch prospect, whether it's Jadeveon Clowney, whether it's Marcus Lattimore, whether it's Jordan Birch, somehow, some way, they find a way to keep that guy in state. And I think that's admirable about the state of South Carolina. I don't know what it says. Maybe it says something about the parenting that goes on within that state where those people want to stay close to home, because every single time I hear about a top 5, top 10 recruit, like the 3 guys we've mentioned, they stay home, and the reason they stay home is because they want to stay home. They want to be close to mom and dad and be close to the family. That's SEC Nightly for tonight, man. I appreciate both you guys for joining us. More than welcome to join anytime you want. I'm going to patch you guys out, though, so wave bye to the camera, wave bye to the folks. We'll see you guys next time. And then I'll say my goodbyes to the folks. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for tuning in to SEC Nightly. We do this Monday through Friday, starting at 9 o'clock, unless I have a basketball game, and then we'll push it back to 10 p.m. But follow us on Twitter. Let me put that up here on the banner for you. Follow us on Twitter at SEC Nightly, and then you'll get all the updates. If you want to know what we're going to be talking about prior to the show, it'll be up there. If you can only catch the show's broadcast in and out, if you've got to put the kids down, if you've got to watch another TV show, The Bachelor's on Monday night, or The Bachelorette, or whatever the season is this year, I'm sure my wife will tell me after the show. Whatever you're watching, if you got something else to do, we've got a podcast available. Just search SEC Nightly on wherever and however you find your podcast. And for those that are listening to this via podcast, man, we would appreciate your support by giving us 5-star review, writing a review for us, and of course, hitting that subscribe button. If you found us on YouTube, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, hit that like, hit that share. And on Periscope, man, just tap that screen, man. Give us all those hearts. Let them fly off across that screen. This has been SEC Nightly. I've been your host, Brooks Austin. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We will see you next time. Deuces.